Welcome to the University of Michigan Dentistry Podcast Series, promoting oral health care worldwide.
As the University of Michigan School of Dentistry implements a pilot program in dental instruction, we brought together a group of faculty and students to discuss their reactions, opinions, and impressions of such a program. The key features of this program are the heavy and extensive use of media, the clear delineation of objectives, and the opportunity for students to pace themselves through courses at individual rates of progress. The first question that I'd like to address to the faculty members is how has this program and the initiation of it affected your approach to teaching?
I guess it's safe to say that any time that you introduce a new program, it's going to change your methodology of teaching. At least you're hopeful that it will. I guess the pilot program, in fact, has caused us to do a lot of preparatory work before the ongoing of the course.
I'm sure we're doing a lot less of lecturing, a lot less time spent in a lecture room. This brings about certainly an advantage, I think, because we're making greater use out of the variety of audio-visual materials. But I find it presents a little bit of a problem, too, in that, at least in this early phase, the dovetailing of the various audio-visual groups of materials together with lectures. How much do you lecture? How much do you really act in that material? This is difficult, I think, at this early stage. It is for me.
Now we're using TV and slide tapes in very clear, precise, very well outlined handouts that the students can understand. All this coupled together, I think, has, and the organization of our thoughts to clear objectives has really made all the faculty members also, I think, more concentrated and more conscious of what's going on in the department. And it's brought our thoughts together, I think, and we have more of a unified approach to the entire program.
That's an interesting point that you brought up about the clarity of objectives. I'm wondering if I could touch base with students here, too, and ask them what kind of effect that the clarification of objectives has on the way you study, knowing what you're going to be tested on, knowing very clearly what the objectives of a particular course or module are. What kind of effect does this have on?
Your objectives are already stated for you, so you know what you have to accomplish. And I think right now all of us are mature enough to direct ourselves, and I feel that you have the objectives there, so you know what you have to do, and it's just a matter of you choosing what time that you're going to do these things. So I feel the flexibility is definitely a good thing.
I found that when I used to go to lectures, I was actually a note taker, and I wasn't learning anything until I would go home that evening or a few weeks later and look at my notes, and if it was a few weeks later, I probably forgot half the information that I wrote down. This way, instead of going to lectures, if you have the option of not going, I can utilize the time studying, in which I have been, and you can get in an awful lot of hours studying rather than sitting and taking notes. And I found that to be very advantageous. And when I do go to a lecture, I have realized now that I should learn it while I'm there instead of just taking notes.
The writing of behavioral objectives doesn't come easy. It doesn't just happen. And I think that I wouldn't say that was completely new to us, but I think when we really had to get down and do it, we found it somewhat difficult because, as Margot said and Jim too, trying to get out the superfluous information, if that's what it really was, or pick out the highlights and really put these into behavioral objectives was a lot different than a man standing up in front of a class with a 3x5 card discussing a subject that might be dear to his heart, and kind of put us in the role of the student, sitting there kind of reading over your own objectives and saying to yourself, well, if that was given to me, would I be able to perform the task?
You have videotapes. You have some written material to go over. You have a handout that oftentimes has pictorial illustrations with it. We do a little bit of lecturing and show slides during that period of time. Is this too much? Is it an overkill, or does one tend to reinforce the other?
I think they reinforce each other because I think, personally, I just enjoy it because a lot of times you can't find an instructor if you have a question right then, but if you can go down to the Cotton Center and check out this tape, that allows you to see it. And a lot of times the tapes do clarify things for you. I wouldn't say it was an overkill.
Sometimes you find you miss something in the videotape that you pick up in the handout.
But you some interesting comments the last 3 years on our Crown and Bridge individualized pilot program. And we asked the students when they were finished with this program if they preferred the handouts or looking at TV or the various things that were available to them. And it's interesting that they were divided, and some students really liked watching television. They learned the greatest amount from that. And other students felt that they liked the handouts best, and they would rather do that. So our conclusions were that students react differently to the different types. And so perhaps maybe if there's a lot available, you probably will hit all the students in the class. Whereas maybe not everybody would use all 3 or 4 things equally, you see. Maybe it's a shotgun approach, but I think you're reaching different individuals.
Since we offered this program to a total of 150 freshmen, it ended up about 64 of them opted for it. And in asking questions of the freshman class at another point, it was found that the major reason that students weren't interested is that they were afraid they'd fall behind. Frequent comments on the sheets that were returned to us were, I've never been good at motivation, self-motivation. I need deadlines. I need someone poking me. I need to know when my tests are so that I can keep up with the material. So I think that is a very key point about motivation.
Jim, I think some students, too, need to have the security that everybody else is in the same boat. And the fellow on this side and this side is doing the same thing I'm doing, so I can relate. But in this program, there may be somebody really behind you and really far ahead of you, but you're all working individually. That's right. And would threaten that type of individual.
It's nice to have that option, though, to be able to strike out on your own, more or less. And if you feel that you're a strong enough individual to do that, I really enjoy having the option to do it. I think it's very worthwhile.
I found that it's cut down a lot of peer pressure. Before, people would always be pounding on, well, what have you studied, and haven't you studied this yet? Now you know your own level and your own rate, and you can work at that speed.
That once you, if you're the type of person, and like she said, I don't think everybody is, but if you're the type of person that can motivate, I believe that you can go ahead, and maybe not time-wise, but I think you can get more experience in the same amount of time and concentrate more on the things that you feel are more important.
I'm wondering if, with the initiation of this program and the use of videotapes and different kind of methodology in studying and in teaching, if the student-teacher relationship shifts, is there a difference? One person mentioned here that a smaller class, I think it was you, Margot, said that there seemed to be more contact, perhaps, insinuating there was more contact with the teacher. But I'm wondering what kind of effect on both ends this tends to have on the relationship between student and teacher.
That all the staff is really taking on greater and greater responsibility as individuals for teaching. I think they have got to know the material that is being presented. They each have their manual. This requires their own preparation. And since there's less direction from a single person, each of them then take on that additional load of helping the students, I think, more and more on this one-to-one basis. And that's, again, part of the benefit from it.
I think also any instructor really enjoys seeing a student that excels. And I think it makes them feel good, makes them feel like they're doing their job. And in this type of program, I found that the instructors have been very helpful for a student who likes to motivate himself, who likes to push a little bit. And they've been very interested in the students, and I think they've done a real good job preparing the materials and helping the students where they need the help.
We talked about videotapes. No one here has really mentioned, Jim mentioned the KIDENT Center, that stands for Computer Assisted Instruction. We have computer programs, 17 computer programs that are available and accessible to students with diagnostic tests and multiple choice questions. We have slide tapes and, of course, film strips. With all this media and the handouts, is there some kind of impersonalization that might seep into the way you approach work? Might you end up spending the whole day with machines and forget that you even have an instructor, or start relating, asking questions to a television tube? How does it affect?
It's strange. I was watching tapes for the Perio course, and I was watching Dr. Beatty, and it was about for 4 hours. And I left at the Kaiden Center, and I went in the hall, and I saw him there. And I felt like I'd been with him all afternoon. But I didn't get that response from him, so it was, I'm sure he didn't even know who I was. So it was a little bit strange in that respect.
You're concentrating so hard to learn things anyhow that you're not going to be real personable with somebody. You have to put in the time and concentrate, and that's a kind of an impersonal, sheltered thing to begin with.
I think teachers are usually available if you do have questions.
How do you feel about this, in relationship to the preclinical courses, like the one that you're involved in now in the area of amalgam? And do you feel that there is a distinct need for a contact with a teacher? There are some things, even we'd like to feel the quality of our tapes and our drawings and everything that we do are excellent. Do you feel that there now, however, is need for that teacher to show you some things, like, for instance, the reflection of the mirror, something that might be difficult to show on that tape?
Definitely, because there are limitations to TV tapes. There are some things, especially three-dimensional things, you just can't pick them out on a tape the way you can in a live situation.
I think one thing you miss with the tapes is the experience that an instructor has, and there just can't be enough said about that. You pick up so many things in a 5-minute talk with an instructor from just the experiences that he's had, and he can relate so many little things that aren't real important that I think it's very important that you have the contact. And but to pick up the basics on the tape, and then you can better utilize your time with an instructor. You don't have to ask him about the grosser things. You can ask him about the fine points, and then he can have more time to give you the experience knowledge that he's picked up.
Yeah, I think this is really the making more effective use out of instructors' time to do it's more the troubleshooting rather than the full teaching aspect of it.
But I know that they have posted, if you have specific questions, certain times you can go and ask for help. And I think that's a lot better than sitting in a classroom and having to wait in line or in turn to ask your question.
You've been listening to a presentation from the University of Michigan School of Dentistry, which is dedicated to supporting open learning and open educational resources. This recording is licensed under the Creative Commons. It may be reused and redistributed for nonprofit use. Please attribute materials to the University of Michigan School of Dentistry and redistribute under this same license. For more information on how this and other University of Michigan School of Dentistry recordings may be used, visit www.dent.umich.edu/license.